Decembere. All praises are Allah's, Lord of the worlds. May His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and His pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, inshallah, we'll start our discussions on Mahdaviyyat or Messianism. And this in itself may take 10 or 20 lectures, but inshallah the start would have been done in Al-Walaya, inshallah. We'll take that as a good omen. There are a number of introductory concepts, though, one has to bear in mind. In this lecture, primarily, I want to introduce you to these concepts before we get to the main discussions. If you understand these concepts, this will stay with you until the end. And these are good concepts to acknowledge in order to absorb many of the higher realities in Islam, in our aqaid. These concepts will help, inshallah. So when discussing the prophets, when discussing the Imams, we're discussing man's identity. We're endeavoring to find out what is man. Man sometimes manifests Ibrahimi style, sometimes Isa alayhi salam style. Man has a Husseini dimension, a Qasimi dimension, and so on and so forth. We don't need to confine the stories of the Quran to a particular specific narrative of the texts. There's a bigger picture at play, and that's to unfold the reality of man, to see what this human soul is, what its identity is, where its identity lies. Man has a lofty station which needs to be explored. Now, the soul has differing states, layers and dimensions, and the Quran unravels the soul and discloses and manifests all the soul's potentials, from the very bad to the very good. It's all verse after verse disclosing the states of man. Then when we read the Quran and the verses, we have to relate or take heed and so on. The Imams too, the story of the Imams, the same philosophy applies. It's the story of man. Now they're all given these different titles like Sajjad, Baghir, and so on and so forth, telling us that we have the potential to be Sajjad, Baghir, Sadiq, Qadir. When we are located in X, Y, or Z environment. It's all a story of man growing, the journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the stories of the prophets and Imams are important. And that's why the study of the 12th Imam has to be of importance to us. His titles have to be explored, because that too is the story of man, the story of the soul, how it grows. Now, the most spiritual creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that of our Holy Prophet Muhammad. And the Quran in its entirety is tantamount to the Holy Prophet's Mi'raj. And last night, I used the term the Quran being a product of the soul of the Holy Prophet. That doesn't mean that the words that the Holy Prophet would utter are his own words. It's a product of the Holy Prophet's Mi'raj. The Mi'raj, the Holy Ascension, being the Holy Prophet's existential journeying to Allah. The reason we have different books and different shariahs is a function of the difference of the quality and degree of the mi'rajes of certain prophets and people. All prophets would undergo mi'raj. Some of them who are entitled the Ulul Azm, the possessors of resolution, strong will, their mi'raj was higher than the rest. Even between those 5 Ulul Azm, messengers of Allah, there's a difference between them. They're all ma'soom, but even within infallibility and ismat, there are degrees. The degrees of ismat is because of the degree of mi'raj and ascension to Allah. The differences of the degree of mi'raj between them leads to a difference in the degree of ismat, some being higher than the other. The reason we have book after book, religion after religion, is also because of the differences of the degree of ascension that the prophets had, the Ulul Azm prophets. Each prophet who brought a book which was a result of their mi'raj, that book, which is a product of the mi'raj of that prophet, is the potential which that prophet realized fully, and it's the potential that the members of the ummah of that prophet can reach. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam revealed a book. He underwent a mi'raj, ascended. He received, when he transcended the different realms of existences, he received abstract divine data, and with that he converted it into words of that book, and that was the Torah. Although there's one discussion which I don't really want to enter here because one would, divert too much. It's the question of did all the books involve and entail angelic intermediary? And Al-Mu'tabar didn't believe that. Only with our Holy Prophet there was an angelic intermediary. That's why the Quran was a miracle. The Quran will stay until the end. The others weren't regarded as a miracle. Now, I've spoken about this before. With your permission, I don't want to really speak as a different topic. But Imam Khomeini believes that the difference of shariahs, the difference of books that we have, the reason we have these books coming one after the other, shariahs coming one after the other, is because of the difference of the mi'raj of those prophets. Now, 2 things have to be covered here. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam comes with his book, that book is a product of his mi'raj. He has realized the maximum of that book, and he's the prophet of the people at that time. the members of the Ummah of Musa alayhi salam, the book of Musa is the potential they can all acquire unity with. The members of Musa, of the Ummah of Musa, they can reach potentially, if they strive hard, the maximum that the book of Musa has to offer. Prophet Isa, the same philosophy applies. The members of the Ummah of Isa can reach that potential, that maximum that the book of Isa has to offer. Now, between the Ulul Azm prophets, when we say some are higher than the other, it's because one of them underwent a higher mi'raj, acquired a closer proximity to Allah, and the result was now a new book for a new people. And then another prophet came many years later, a stronger mi'raj, product of the soul of that prophet. There was still room for spiritual elevation. New prophet came, new book. The book was revelation, product of the mi'raj of that prophet with the people of that time. And those people can acquire the maximum of that book. But then our prophets came. Now the reason why we say Islam is the last religion is because the mi'raj which our prophet realized was infinite in nature. There can't be a higher mi'raj than the nature and degree of mi'raj that the Holy Prophet underwent. And because of that, we believe that this book is the last book. So it's all to do with the degree of mi'raj between the prophets. And we, as members of the Ummah, of the Muhammadan Ummah, we acquire unity and access to the potential that the Quran has within it, which is much higher than the potential previous Ummahs had. That's worthy to note. Now, the perfect man, the prophet or imam, is a manifestation of all divine attributes. And therefore, as a result of this, is an intermediary between haqq and khalaq. Prophets, imams, perfect human beings, are intermediaries between truth and creation, between Allah and other than Allah, or people. They're intermediaries. Now this concept of being an intermediary is important. And this, if you acknowledge and understand this, it will be of benefit for many discussions in our aqaid. It's a key to solving many dilemmas that we come across in the Quran. That at face value, it seems problematic even when we read the verses. But this is a very important key. So, to be such an intermediary between Allah and creation, between the truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and creation, one has to embrace both the haqqi dimensions, the godly dimensions, the spiritual dimensions, and the khalaqi, creation, or worldly dimensions. One has to embrace both. And in chapter 18, 110, the last verse of Surah Al-Kahf, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. I'm only a human being, basharun, mithlukum, like you. That's the khalaqi dimension. worldly, creation-orientated dimension that they embrace. The Holy Prophet embraced them, prophets, perfect people. Yuha ilayya, it's revealed to me. That's the haqqi dimension, the revelation dimension, the spiritual dimension. To be an intermediary, you have to embrace both. This has to be explored more. In Irfani terminology, extrapolated from the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt, acting as intermediaries, acting as in-betweens. There's a term that they call such people barzakhs. Now, they automatically go to the barzakh which we usually refer to and associate with. These people, these in-betweens, these intermediaries between the haqqi, spiritual, godly dimension and the worldly, created dimension, these are called barzakhs. And they're called barzakhs because of that in-between nature that they have. Between what? Those two realms of existences, the haqqi and the khamri. And the reason we also call barzakh, i.e. between this world and qiyamah, because in qiyamah it's an immaterial world. In this world it's a material world. Barzakh is in between these two realms of existences. It's a semi-immaterial realm. Like what we see in our dreams, that's the barzakhi realm. And it shares both of its sides. It has the immaterial nature, there's no matter in it, but it also has the material dimension, this colour, size, shape, and so on and so forth. It embraces both dimensions that it lies between. Prophets, imams, perfect people, perfect souls are also termed barzakhs because they embrace the haqqi, yuha ilayya dimension, and they have the worldly, created dimension, basharun mithlukum, they're human beings like me and you. They embrace both, and as intermediaries, as in-betweens, they're called barzakh. Possessing both attributes of both sides. Now, these barzakhs, meaning that being an intermediary, there are two forms. There's the dhulmani barzakh, the dark barzakh. It's negative, it's oppressive in nature. And then there's the nurani, luminous barzakh. With the dhulmani, dark barzakh, is when something is an in-between, between two things, and it prevents those two things that this is lying in between to get into union with one another. So, for example, this is just an example, like this finger, the middle finger, would be a dark barzakh between this ring finger and the index finger. It doesn't let these two come together. Whereas with the luminous barzakhs, it allows the two entities that it's lying in between to acquire union with one another. So, an example of the luminous barzakh would be the imams and the prophets, the perfect human souls, where they allow allow the happy dimension, the spiritual side, to be in union with creation. Because they share both the Basharon Mithlokom aspect and they have the divinely aspect associated with them. And they become intermediaries between God and the people. God and creation. God is the most immaterial of the immaterial. We people in this world, creation, are the dunya, the most inferior of the material. Here, what is required is a barzakh. Because God doesn't come, with 2 legs or 2 arms, or it doesn't come with any figure or body to speak or communicate. He's the most immaterial of the immaterial. For this union between creation and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there has to be an intermediary. And this intermediary is the Prophet, the Imam, the perfect soul, allowing this union to take place. And Allah's intermediaries, therefore, are called barzakhs. Between these 2 realms, contact becomes enabled for it to happen. Another example they give is when someone is in the state of ihtidar, those final breaths of life. He's still alive, but he's going to die any minute. He's undergoing his final breaths of life. He's also basharun mithlukum, he has a physical body. During intidar, when definitive death is to result, one sees the metaphysical realities. One is now embracing both of those dimensions, the haqqi and the khalqi dimensions once again. But that person, he may be a good person or a bad person. But if you abide by the formula which we covered last night, mutu qabla an tamutu, die a spiritual death before that physical death, then you become an intermediary. Because you've acquired unity with that happy realm. You're beginning now to deserve to act as an intermediary between Allah and the people. How does one become an intermediary between the 2 dimensions, the happy spiritual dimension and the creative dimension, the worldly dimension? We have a tradition that says, لا يلج ملكوت السماوات والأرض من لم يولد مرتين. One who's not born twice will not have access to the dominions of the heavens and the earth. You have to be born twice. Being born twice is something specific to humans. Animals don't have that. Well, we're all born once. This second birth all depends on us having a spiritual death, after which we have our second birth. So this tradition also is a commentary to Mutu Qabla an Tamutu. It's all about transcending the realms of existence. It's closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, as intermediaries, these are just, introductory points. As intermediaries, Nurani Barzakhs, these people have two roles and functions. The first is that they act as Allah's mirror before creation. They act as Allah's mirror to the people. They manifest divine traits to creation, to the people. They express higher realities. They express perfection to the people. They're Allah's mirror to the people. They're reflecting that Allah-liness to the people. Because they embrace both aspects, we said. The haqqi and the khalqi. So they come with a message to the people. So, that's one role. The second role is they act as the people's mirror to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See? Because they're intermediaries now. It's a two-way process. Now they've acquired a certain status out of spirituality. They become intermediaries between Allah and the people. Haqq and khalq. Truth and creation. And whatever name you want to give it. They act as Allah's mirror to the people. They come to the people after undergoing the Mi'raj with a message to reach Allah, a message to perfection. But they act as a mirror, as the people's mirror to Allah. Now this is very delicate too. Where the people's mirror to Allah, taking to Allah the people's weaknesses, taking to Allah the people's inabilities, the people's corruptive side. They're prophets of the people, they're imams of the time. That's what they do. They're intermediaries between Allah and the people. From Allah to the people, they come with a message, with a book, so that we become perfected. As people's mirror to Allah, being with the people, being their prophet, being their imam, being their guide, being their hujjah. It doesn't have to be a prophet or an imam. You can be a hujjat and not be a prophet and an imam. لولا الحجة لساخت الأرض. If there's no hujjah, the earth will perish. That it says hujjah. It doesn't say لولا الإمام. It doesn't say لولا النبي. This is important. Although I'm not sure if we'll get to this stage, but with the martyrdom of the 12th Imam, doesn't mean everything will be destroyed. Of course, there'll still remain hujjas on earth. The Imam was always in contact with circles of people, be they the 4 Otad, the 40 Abdal, and so on and so forth. Not only are they hujjas, they're more than hujjas. They're stronger than the previous prophets. So they act, in this second phase, they act as people's mirror to Allah. And they disclose man's corruptive nature, man's weaknesses, man's inabilities, depending on the tribe at that time, what the tribe was. Takes it to Allah to then receive a protocol for those people. Depending on what the weakness, the inability of that people was. It varies. And then from Allah he gets the message, he comes back to the people again, an intermediary, a luminous barzakh between these two realms. So, when Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam when he says, I am the throne, I am the arsh, or I am the qalam, I am the pen, or I am the kursi, the chair, or I am this attribute, that attribute. When Amirul Mu'mineen, what he's showing us here is that he's reflecting to us who are beneath him, confined to this khalqi dimension. He's reflecting to us those divine names and truths of Allah that are incorporated within his existence, within the existence of Amirul Mu'mineen. As a manifester of Allah's names, Amirul Mu'mineen is manifesting Allah through his own existence, manifesting all divine attributes to the people through himself. But in reality, he is not expressing the attributes of the essence of the Imam, because he's an intermediary. He's not saying that all these attributes are attributed to me, Amirul Mu'mineen. That's not the case. He's manifesting attributes and names, and when he says, I am the pen, I am everything, he's not attributing this to the essence of himself. Rather, in reality, he's attributing it to that essence that he is dependent upon. Is attributing that which Amirul Mu'mineen depends upon, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now here, in Arabic rhetoric, sometimes they give the sentence and say that, for example, John is scholarly, or John is a scholar. When people, this is the Arabic of 1400 years ago, medieval Arabic, when they would say John is a scholar, this could be understood in two ways. There's an essence called John, a concrete essence, an individual, and you attribute being scholarly to this concrete person. And we have that in English. I think all languages have it. But sometimes when you say John is a scholar, you're attributing being scholarly to that which John depends upon. John was a student of a very strong scholar, for example. And when you hear that he was a student of this scholar, you say, John is scholarly. John is a scholar. But this being scholarly, you're attributing to that entity which John depends upon, who is that Ustad of John, not to John himself. Is that clear, inshallah? Yes, because although there's one other example I'll give later too. It's this in relation to perfect souls, in relation to prophets, imams, proofs of Allah. It's this second form of addressing attributes, which is the norm. So when prophets or imams, when they're described with these holy titles, they're not attributed to the imams, to the prophets themselves. They're attributed to that entity which the imams depend upon, and that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After all, imams, prophets, they're servants of Allah. They're poor, they're needy, they're weak, they're subservient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a result of that subservience that utter neediness that they see before the Almighty, that they ascend spiritually. But they're only intermediaries. But they acquired that status. Although the discussion of infallibility I will discuss inshallah in the next 1 or 2 days. It's something which hasn't been really properly explained. And the books in Aqaid, they do explain it, but for some reason people are not understanding it properly, and then these dilemmas and shubhat come, and then they suddenly have nothing to say. But that is an important thing that I'll touch upon inshallah. And the code for that lies in Ziyarat al-Waris, but inshallah we'll come to later. So, whatever they have is from Allah. These holy attributes, when we describe the Imams with these titles, or when they describe it to themselves and say, I am this, I am that, they're not attributing it to themselves. They're attributing it to that entity which they depend upon. Otherwise they always act on a par with Allah's will. They never say anything of their own liking. Chapter 53, verses 3 and 4. وَمَا يَنْتَقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. They don't speak of their own liking. It's in relation to the Holy Prophet and all the Masumi. He doesn't speak of his own liking. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. It's just revelation being revealed. Whatever he says out of revelation, be it the legislative revelation, which was the Holy Quran, or the non-legislative revelation, which was words outside the Quran. But they were also revealed, but in a different manner to how the Quran was revealed. There was no angelic intermediary there, but it was a result of their mi'raj. So when Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I am X attribute, Y attribute, it's because he's a luminous barzakh, being a mirror to Allah's beauty and reflecting Allah's beauty and other attributes. Now, the example that the scholars give is the example of the moon. This is another example they give for us to understand this. And that is, the moon is a barzakh between the sun and the earth. You have to bear with me with this example. When the moon says, for example, when it's said of the moon, that the moon provides the people on earth with light at night time. The moon is providing light to the people. In reality, this attribute of giving light is predicated, is attributed to that which the moon depends upon, and that's the sun. The moon doesn't have any light out of its own self. It doesn't provide light. This provision of light is not attributed to the concrete essence of the moon. We don't see the sun at night. And then we just see the moon. And then we may think that the moon is providing light. But the moon, this providing of light, isn't attributed to the essence of the moon. It's attributed to that which the moon depends upon. And that's the sun. The moon is an intermediary between the sun and earth. It gets light from the sun, gives it to the khalqi dimension, the people on earth. Okay? Remember the two functions of the prophets. They act as Allah's mirror. The moon gets light from the sun, reflects it to the people. But then the prophets, we said, act as the people's mirror to above. The moon, we may say, becomes dark, becomes covered. But here, this covering of the moon, this darkness of the moon, isn't attributed to the essence of the moon again, but rather it's the shadow of the earth which is covering it. But we say the moon is covered with darkness. The moon is an intermediary here. Sun, people on earth, or earth. Gets light from the sun, passes it down to people on earth. If the light isn't attributed to the essence though, it just reflects a higher reality. From earth, it acquires darkness. It becomes covered in darkness. That covering of darkness is not attributed though to the moon itself. It's the shadow of earth which covers the moon. So when the moon says, I'm covered in darkness, this is an attribute of earth. When the moon says, I'm spreading light, it's an attribute of the sun. The moon is an intermediary, embracing both dimensions. Now this is important. If you've understood that, especially the last example, many of the stories of the Quran, which I'll speak about tomorrow, but I'll just mention one or two, just in passing. You see that on the outside surface of the verses of the Quran, the Prophet had committed a mistake. Error can be attributed to the Prophet if you don't be careful. But we believe, according to the explicit verses of the Quran, that all prophets are ma'soom. And that's why here the prophets, they take the people's weaknesses, the people's corruptive side, the negative aspects of people, and takes it to Allah. But that weakness, that sin of the people isn't attributed to the essence of the Prophet. It's attributed to that lower dimension, in the same way that when the Prophet comes with a message of perfection to the people and reflects divine attributes, those divine attributes aren't attributed to the essence of the Prophet. It's attributed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those errors aren't attributed to the prophets either. And that's the meaning of being an intermediary between the haqq, truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the dimension of creation, the worldly dimension, people. And here, now, commentating on verse of the Quran becomes important. And with each story, when the Prophet goes with the problems of those people to Allah, Allah then gives the Prophet a formula, and those formula always have a spiritual side and a worldly side. And we'll come to that tomorrow, inshallah. Now these barzakhi intermediaries, I'll just finish with this, and I apologize for last night, going over the top. But these barzakhi intermediaries between haqq and khalq have a name. It's a Quranic name. These intermediaries are called Al. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Al Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Al Muhammad. Who are the Al? It means household, family, progeny. This Al is divided into two types. One is a familial, family, or genetic related Al. And here many people are included in the family of the Holy Prophet. He had uncles who weren't on the path. And he had people related to him who weren't on the path. But they do qualify as all in the literal sense. Because they're related genetically. It's the family. But then the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt provide a code, a secret. And they tell us what the all is, so that those negative elements in this first definition of all, which includes negative and weak members, they are eliminated. This the Holy Prophet has given this tradition, where he said, كل تقي ونقي آلي. All those who have taqwa and are pure, they are my all. They are my household. And not only does this eliminate those negative members of the genetic family of the Holy Prophet, but then it introduces extra members outside the family coming inside the all. And most importantly for us, we can also gain access and entrance to be Al Muhammad. And that's of value. The potential is there. So every salawat which is uttered, you can be in that formula. You can be part of that equation. Those salutations and peace, moment to moment, will enhance your faith. But two things are important: taqwa and purity. Now what these two mean, the degrees of taqwa, the degrees of purity, I've spoken elsewhere. But these are important. And this principle, this code which the Holy Prophet gave, this equation is also seen in the Quran. It's a Quranic principle too. In the story of Prophet Noah alayhi salam. Here Allah promised Noah that his all, the all of Noah alayhi salam, would be protected from the destruction of the floods, be it the physical floods or the spiritual floods. Then when drowning, when the son of Noah, who was his genetic family, when he was drowning, and the spiritual all were in the ark, Noah showed affection to his son. Nothing wrong with that. For those who have sons and they're not on the path, instead of pushing them and expressing hostile behavior to them and losing hope in relation to them and always thinking you're superior to them, just calm down a bit. Go to their level, respect them. The affection has to always be there. You're responsible for your son. You have to do your best. And daughters, but here in the story, Nuh alayhi salam still showed affection. He was the prophet. He can't not show perfection. Whoever has an iota of potential to come on the path, Nuh would always, as a prophet, guide them, show affection to them, show compassion to them. And okay, maybe some of the children are deviating, and then people think it's the end of the world. So if you just be compassionate with, especially if they're over 13 or 14, it's finished. parental guidance ends there. After 13 or 14, you can't be the upper figure anymore. You have to be just two friends. If you want to always have the upper hand, you'll just waste your son, bit by bit. Just two friends now, on equal pegging. Your chance was from 7 to 14. These are approximate dates. There, yes, the story differs there. You have to show them who is the boss in the house. They have to learn that in this sensitive age. And the reason for that is so that when they undergo puberty, with all those at more, they understand what submission means. So it's a transition. But after 13, 14 years of age, no, you can't. It won't work. But even if it's too late and your child is deviated and is over 14, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That there's still hope always. But compassion is the key there. Anyway, Noah alayhi salam, he still had that compassion for his son. And he said, this is my son. Is there no way for him to come on the path? Then Allah gave the code in the Quran. He said, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِنْ أَهْلِكَ. Verily he is not of your ahl. Ahl means all, the family. See, that's the spiritual all now. إِنَّهُ أَمَلٌ غَيْرُ صَالِحٍ. He is non-righteous actions. It says he is non-righteous. He is the possessor of non-righteous actions. He is non-righteous actions. You are your actions. To be part of the spiritual all, you have to have taqwa and purity. So from an external perspective, a fiqhi perspective, yes, someone may be classified as Noah's son. That's okay, from a genetic aspect from it. Someone may be regarded as the prophet's or any prophet's wife. And they would be regarded as a genetic all also. However, the criterion though of to be part of the family, the all, which is destiny building, there the criteria is taqwa and purity. And that's why in relation to Salman, alayhi salam, Salmano minna ahlal bayt. And we'll speak more about Salman maybe later, inshallah. Okay. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Okay, so I'll just read with your permission a few words of musibat. But I'm not very good with musibat. I don't really have the voice for that. But this is a tradition which has been there for centuries, and it's an important tradition. So, yes. On the eve of Ashura, Lady Zainab was walking around the tents, asking herself what will happen tomorrow. Hussein alayhi salam had explicitly stipulated that death is the fate of all. On many occasions, he stipulated this. After walking around the different tents, Hussein saw her smiling. He said, Ya Zainab, since leaving Mecca all this time, I have never seen you this happy. What's happened? Lady Zainab alayhi salam said, I was walking past the tents of the companions, and I was walking past the tents of Bani Hashim, the family of the Imam Hussein. And then I became happy. When I was passing the tents of the companions, Zainab said, I heard Habib ibn Madahir, utter words of unity and loyalty to you, to Imam Hussein. Habib was an incredible figure, and when he left Kufa for Karbala, at first he didn't tell his wife where he's going exactly. He hadn't established his wife's position in relation to the Ahlul Bayt. And what had happened during that time was that many wives had disclosed their husbands' affinities to the Ahlul Bayt, to the public, and that led to the oppressive regime of the time to kill the husbands. And whether it was done on purpose or indirectly, that's another issue. So Habib had kept his affinities to himself and wouldn't tell his wife out of precaution. And furthermore, he didn't want to make his wife upset or stressed. After all, this would mean the end of Habib were he to go to Karbala and fight for Hussein. So Habib said to her, to his wife, I'm going to see a few friends and comrades. And then Habib's wife's inner disposition became disclosed. She expressed herself. She said, Fatima's son is entrapped in Karbala, and you want to visit your friend's house? Be embarrassed, Habib. Here, on receiving such a reply, Habib told his wife the truth. Then, on hearing what Habib had to say, the wife expressed her inner identity even more by saying, I too will come with you. Habib said, no, you may act as a barrier, an impediment to my endeavors, and convinced her to stay. Habib arrived in Karbala. They checked him out when he entered there, due to the genuine fears they all had vis-a-vis Hussein's security. They then informed Imam Hussein alayhi salam that Habib has arrived. When Habib went and sat with Hussein alayhi salam, Lady Zainab was informed. And she didn't want to enter the tents herself, and so she found a family member, either Ali Akbar or Qasim alayhim salam, and told them, tell Habib that Zainab, the daughter of Amir al-Mu'mineen, has sent her salams to you. Now this is a blessing for Habib to be given the salams of Lady Zainab. So the family member went to Habib and said, our aunt has sent her salams to you, O Habib. Going back to the eve of Ashura, Zainab was outside the tents of the companions. She saw Habib calling the companions, and she saw Habib calling the companions and started speaking with the companions. Habib said, O Ashab, O companions, what is your view about tomorrow? What's the plan? Zainab was outside the tents hearing this. The companions all rose their swords and shouted, O Habib, whatever you do, we shall follow suit. Then Habib outlined his procedure and protocol of action. Zainab alayhi salam listening. Habib said, we should not by any means allow Bani Hashim the right to enter the battlefield first. Until we, the companions, we will not let them enter the battle. Habib continued, because this is bad for us. How will future generations look upon us? Everyone accepted. Zainab's heart was slightly made tranquil. This tranquility of the heart of Zainab is a code how we today can make her heart tranquil. Then she progressed to the tents of Bani Hashim. There she heard Abbas alayhi salam assembling the members of the Ahlul Bayt of Bani Hashim. Abbas said, "O Ali Akbar, O Qasim, O Bani Hashim, what is your view in relation to tomorrow if war commences?" They all rose their swords, exclaimed, "O Abbas, whatever you do, we will follow suit." Then Abbas continued and said, "We must go to the battlefield first. We have to go to the battlefield first. We should not let the companions go before us." Then Abbas started giving his reasons and rationale. He said, "Because Hussein is one of us. This will be bad for us if we stay alive whilst the companions die. For our master and father, we must die for Hussein first." And they all agreed. Lady Zainab became happy. But the following day, these words were to be put in action. During the Battle of Ashura, Habib was in charge of the army's left flank. He was constantly under complete composure the whole period. However, things were soon to change. Halfway into the battle, Abu Thumama as-Sa'idi looked up into the sky's horizon and observed that the time for the Zuhr Salat had arrived. "Oh Hussein," he exclaimed, "it's time to pray." The Imam said, "You've reminded us of the Salat. May Allah assign you with the status of the Musallin. Ask for a temporary truce so that we may execute our Salat." When this was suggested to the enemy, Hassin ibn Tamim said, "Annaha la tuqbal, your Salats aren't accepted." Habib got infuriated and replied, "Za'amta annaha la tuqbal min ali Rasul wa tuqbal mink ya himar." Do you think that the Salats won't be accepted from the Al of the Holy Messenger, but will be accepted by you, O donkey? Habib, seeing the essence of the enemy, Hassin then reacted to this comment and started an attack on Habib. Habib struck Hassin's horse's face with his sword. The horse fell and Hassin followed, lying on the earth. However, he was immediately escorted away by a number of soldiers. The battle continued and Habib, with his age, managed to stay firm. He killed 62 soldiers, but eventually he was struck by the sword of Badil ibn Surayn. He was then pierced with another soldier's spear and he fell down. He wanted to stand up, but Hassin was there, in the waiting, and struck his sword with all his power through Habib's head. Habib fell over again, face first, and the Tamimi soldier then came over Habib and amputated his head. When the Imam Hussein came over Habib's body, it was difficult for him to cope with such a scene. This was Habib. This was a lifelong family friend. Imam Hussein, when he was a child, Habib would from afar just sit and stare at Hussein for hours, just looking at Hussein. When he came over the body of Habib, he kept uttering, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This was Habib, a lifelong family disciple. O Habib, Imam said, verily you used to recite the entire Quran in a single night. Indeed, you're a righteous person. Taking Habib's life was so significant for the enemy that they were quarreling as to who should take the amputated head back to Kufa. On their way back, the man in whose hands Habib's head was situated encountered a young child, a young boy, looking at the head with utmost precision. It was Habib's offspring. Although I saw Habib as my father's head, he begged to be given his father's head, but the soldier refused. But after the saga of Karbala, there was another amputated head. But this time it was that of Hussein's. One of the Imam's daughters, Ruqayya, came across the head and she asked for the head. But in this scenario, the animals, they actually gave the head to her. Ya Abata, Father, Man alladhi aytamani ala sighar sinni, who's made me an orphan at such a young age. Ruqayya saw the head very closely. She saw the fractures. She saw the beard covered with blood. She saw everything and said, Laytani kuntu a'ma wa lam ara lahzaka. If only I could have been blind and not to see your head like this.